The story begins in the dark, oppressive wastelands surrounding the Demon Lord's palace, where the four great mages fight it alongside a young hero, struggling to defeat it for the sake of the human race. As the giant monster captures the hero, the four mages bombard it with powerful elemental spells, forcing it to drop him. After the hero is secured, the mages regroup to begin another assault on the Demon Lord. Though the lightning mage, called Eftel, struggles to catch his breath, faced with all the mages in one spot, the Demon Lord unleashes mighty beams of destruction towards them, but they block his attacks with magic shields. While the Demon Lord is distracted, the hero jumps out from the cover of the shields and drives his sword into the monster's head. Finally, Eftel stuns the Demon Lord with a devastating electric shock, which gives two other mages the chance to pierce straight through its head. With its body destroyed and powers depleted, the Demon Lord lets out one final scream of agony before succumbing to his injuries. Watching the fallen monster, Eftel is unable to believe he achieved such a huge victory. Afterward, the mages return to their kingdom, where the king holds a grand ceremony to celebrate their victory. In front of the rejoicing kingdom, he awards all four of the mages with the title of Emperor. Knowing that only a pure-blooded noble can receive this grand title, the Lightning Emperor Eftel tears up with joy since he is only a commoner. As he accepts the title with gratitude, the entire kingdom erupts into cheers. Years later, the mighty Lightning Emperor has grown old. After gaining much fame and prestige within the kingdom, he has accepted several talented young magic students. One of his young students is a demon girl called Merlin, who lost her mother during the fight against the Demon Lord. At that time, Eftel had found her as a crying infant, so he adopted her and raised her as his own out of guilt for accidentally killing her innocent mother. Years later, he teaches magic to Merlin just like all the other human children in his care. In one of his lessons, the Lightning Emperor makes all of his students concentrate and hold their magic for a little while to hone their focus. Then, he orders them to release the magic and prepare to practice level 4 spells with him. However, Merlin asks the old man to rest, since she thinks he has been pushing himself too far. Watching the concern in her eyes, Eftel feels guilty, thinking that he doesn't deserve the concern from an innocent girl whose mother died from his actions. In reality, the truth would be too painful for the young girl. So Eftel remains silent and instead begins teaching the level 4 spells. Suddenly, Merlin asks him to jump to level 6 spells. Although the other students are shocked, since 2 levels would be a crazy leap for them, Eftel knows that Merlin holds the immense talent required to progress so quickly. Still, he reminds her that it's not good to rush the fundamentals, so she gets frustrated and remains silent. Afterward, Merlin sneaks out into a nearby forest, gripping her magic staff as she makes a difficult decision. She steals her grit and moves forward, arriving at the entrance of a cave deep within, where she wants to defeat the powerful monster slumbering inside. By proving her strength, Merlin hopes that she can take over Eftel's work and teach the students in his place so the old man can finally rest. Unfortunately, the young girl has no business messing with monsters 20 times her size, so she ends up running away after her level 4 spells completely fail to damage the cave monster. As the monster catches up with her, Merlin realizes there's nowhere to run. So in a desperate attempt to survive, she tries to cast level 6 magic despite having 0 experience with it. With some incredible focus, she successfully casts a level 6 lightning bolt at the monster behind her, pleasantly surprised by her own skill. However, the spell is still unable to defeat the monster, which roars and knocks her away with a powerful swipe of its paws. Soon, the angry monster is right in front of Merlin, who closes her eyes and accepts her fate. While awaiting her death, she is startled by the sound of a powerful lightning bolt, so she quickly opens her eyes. With the monster no longer in sight, she spots Eftel walking towards her. Relieved to be saved, Merlin bursts into a big smile, but then she recoils as he starts scolding her for risking her life. Eftel reminds the young girl that even with her God-gifted talent, she will doom herself to failure by progressing too quickly without properly learning the fundamentals of lower-level magic. As the old man rambles away, Merlin is shocked to see that the injured monster has reappeared behind him. Before she can say a word to warn him, Eftel raises his hand and completely vaporizes the evil pup into smithereens. Afterward, he takes Merlin back home, who keeps on dreaming about her master's incredible strength. Suddenly, doubles over and starts coughing blood, so Merlin gets worried for him. All this time, the old man had been trying to appear strong in front of his student, but his age has caught up to him. Merlin reveals that she already knew about his illness, so Eftel finally realizes why she has been rushing to get stronger. She tells him to take things easy, but he thinks that he has no time to rest since he's reaching the end of his days. Merlin wonders why he's pushing himself so hard, so Eftel explains that he once dreamed of becoming the strongest mage in the world. Unfortunately, despite his incredible dedication and efforts, he was simply unable to catch up with his peers, who became the other 3 of the 4 emperors. Out of the 4, Eftel had always been the oldest, and he struggled to keep up with them even in the battle against the Demon Lord. Merlin tries to convince her master that he's not inferior to anyone, but she knows it's a losing battle. Some days later, one of the kids knocks at Eftel's door with big news. He explains that the Flame Emperor has researched a method to detect a person's magical talent, so he brought over the method to check it out. In this world, magic aptitude has always been a hidden value that nobody could figure out. In order to study magic, magicians would just learn all the lower-level spells of the 4 elements before making a guess about their talent and progressing further in that element. However, if they found a way to accurately determine a person's talents, they could spend their time and resources focusing on just their strengths to achieve new feats. Thinking about this, Eftel takes a look at the method, and he quickly becomes convinced that the Fire Emperor has succeeded. He quickly calls all of his students and sets up 4 vials of water to begin testing their talents. Each of the 4 vials represents the 4 elements: fire, water, wind, and earth. Eftel decides to test Merlin's talent first, dipping a strand of her hair in each vial. This causes each vial to glow in different colors, showing how much talent she has in each element. Since the blue and green vials are glowing the brightest, Eftel determines that Merlin has S-rank talent in both water and wind. The other 2 vials hold a dimmer glow, which means that her earth and fire talents are only B and C grade. Usually, Eftel would be skeptical of an aptitude test, but since he has observed similar talents in Merlin over the years of teaching her, he knows that the test is legit. Blessed with an accurate testing device from the start, Eftel thinks their world will usher in a new era where students can focus on their gifted talents without wasting time. Then, he becomes curious about testing his own talents, although Merlin thinks there's no need, since Eftel is the Lightning Emperor. The old man still wonders if his genetic talent has been holding him back. The rest of the students also get curious, so they agree to test him. Soon, as Eftel's hair is dipped into the vials, the water remains completely colorless. This leaves him completely stunned, since a colorless vial means he has no talent in that element. Throughout his entire life, Eftel has worked much harder than any of his peers just to keep up with them. Now, he feels devastated to think that he had been trying so hard in a race he was never given the tools to win. As the old man struggles to accept this reality, Merlin suggests retaking the test since it's possible they made a mistake. Unfortunately, no matter how many times Eftel takes the test, the water remains as colorless as his barren future. Finally, the old man admits that he has always been genetically inferior to his friends, but he somehow kept up with him through his sheer willpower and hard work. This blow is too much for his pride to handle, and he collapses to the floor in pain. Although Merlin rushes to comfort him, Eftel leaves to rest in his own room, preventing her from seeing him. Inside, he lies on the bed, his body worsening under the stress of his new knowledge. His whole life, Eftel thought he could reach the peak of magic if he simply worked the hardest. Now, with his days coming to an end, he knows it was always a delusion he never had the talent to achieve. The poor man starts crying from frustration, wishing he had more time to just work on himself and improve. Unfortunately, his body soon loses his strength once his will to live completely fades. After passing away, Eftel wakes up in a strange space, opened up by his secret reincarnation skill. There, he meets the reincarnation master, who revived him after he had already taken his life from frustration in another world. The reincarnation master explains that Eftel has a skill called Indomitable, which allowed him to work so hard despite his pitiful talent. Because of this, he was still able to be on par with the other 4 emperors. Now, the master gives him another chance to reincarnate with 2 cheat skills of his own choice. She wonders if he simply wants a boosted talent, but Eftel refuses the offer. After working so hard to improve himself with knowledge and skill, he thinks he can do the same in another life with his previous knowledge. The master nods, admitting that Eftel's immense willpower helped him succeed. Then, while respecting his wishes, she reincarnates him into the same world. Decades before his death, when he was still a child, after waking up, the child Eftel realizes that he still has his memories from his past life. Then, he goes downstairs, where his loving mother rushes to greet him. After smothering her son, she serves breakfast to him. While having breakfast, Eftel realizes that he still remembers how to test his magic talent, so he sneaks out to try it in secret. Unfortunately, despite being reincarnated, he has the body of the same person, so his magic talent is still non-existent. Defeated by this realization, Eftel goes out for some fresh air. Even with his magical knowledge, he thinks he'll hit his genetic limits in this life after reaching level 10 spells. Suddenly, a dragon flies over Eftel, interrupting his thoughts. Shocked, he gets up and sees that a troop of knights is chasing the giant monster to stop it from hurting townsfolk. Eftel rushes to help, but then he remembers he doesn't have the strength from his past life. However, he still remembers the original spell he created for himself in his past life, so he tries to use it. To Eftel's shock, the spell roars to life, creating arrays upon arrays of magical runes. Then, it releases a devastating thunderbolt towards the dragon, which cooks the poor creature alive. Sitting on the ground, shocked, Eftel watches as the dragon plummets lifelessly. In this moment, he realizes that he has not only retained the magical knowledge from his previous life, but also the peak of his magical abilities as a level 10 lightning emperor. 3 years pass, and Eftel learns that he's living in the same world from his previous life. However, he was reborn to different parents 400 years after his previous death. His older brother, Frazier, enters through the door and brings his mother some money. Then, he praises Eftel, watching him study his magic books. In this life, Eftel is the son of Duke Orcott, who is a nobleman descended from the original Lightning Emperor. However, Eftel's mom was a talentless commoner, so the rest of Duke Orcott's wives hated her and forced her to live with her son in the middle of nowhere. Despite knowing this bitter reality, the young boy innocently asks Frazier when he'll get to see his dad. The mention of their absent dad is clearly a sore spot, so Frazier tries to comfort him with sweet words. Since Frazier happens to be the Duke's legitimate son, he promises to ask him to meet Eftel. Despite his powerlessness against his dad, the kind young man does his best to take care of his brother and stepmom. Soon, Eftel's mom makes everyone some tea, so Frazier sits down for a chat. He asks his younger brother what he wants to do once he grows up, which sets him off like a bomb. Excited, Eftel tells Frazier that he wants to study magic, but his mom quickly covers his mouth and claims he'll go to military school instead. Since the poor boy has no magic talent, she doesn't want him to get heartbroken in the future. Frazier also thinks it's a great idea to put Eftel into military school. He proudly reveals that he also graduated from one, so he can easily teach his brother and recommend him to a good institute. At first, Frazier picked the military school because he hated his family's tradition of learning magic, but he quickly fell in love with the military life. For the same reason, he thinks that Eftel will have a bright future if he simply takes the easy path in front of him. Delighted by Frazier's enthusiasm, Eftel's mom allows him to take the boy out for some practice. Outside, Eftel works hard to practice sword swings under his brother's guidance. As Frazier cheers him on, Eftel realizes that he had wanted him to go to military school from the start, since he didn't want his younger brother to get disappointed. Still, he hates the idea of giving up on magic just because he lacks the genetics. Knowing that his mom isn't around to stop him, Eftel starts throwing a fit, screaming that he wants to become a mage. Frazier sighs and tries to gently console his brother, but Eftel insists that he can hold mana and cast spells despite his lackluster talent. In his heart, Eftel thinks that magic must have advanced in 400 years, so he hopes to uncover the reason behind his body's limitations by studying in a modern library. Naturally, Frazier has no idea about his brother's schemes, so he gives in to his demands. He tells Eftel that he'll demonstrate a few magic spells, and if he can copy the spells after seeing them, he'll personally recommend him to a magic school. Hearing this, Eftel excitedly agrees, while Frazier thinks he's in for a world of disappointment. He tells Eftel to watch closely before taking a deep breath and starting his incarnation. After performing a whole bunch of complicated movements, Frazier casts a level 2 wind spell, which struggles a bit, but eventually cuts through a thick tree. He thinks that this spell will completely discourage Eftel from even trying magic. To his shock, the young boy is completely unimpressed. Thinking he doesn't know how difficult magic is, Frazier begins to explain, but Eftel casts a spell in the middle of his sentence, which easily cuts through an entire row of trees like paper. Shocked, Frazier wonders how it's possible for his younger brother to be so strong. He also realizes that Eftel just cast a spell without an incarnation, which is an advanced technique only a sage can use. Seeing his brother's reaction, Eftel also realizes he showed off a bit too much. He claims that he accidentally made the spell level 4 instead of 2, which scares the life out of Frazier. For some reason, he thinks level 4 spells are incredibly advanced magic. Hearing this, Eftel gets confused, since level 4 spells are only beginner stuff in his eyes. However, Frazier keeps screaming how insane level 4 spells are, so Eftel softly admits that he can use level 10 spells as well. Hearing this, Frazier literally passes out from shock. Seeing his reaction, Eftel wonders if his magical abilities are too advanced for this world. Back when he killed the dragon, the soldiers chasing it literally thought it was a miracle from God, since they couldn't imagine so much power coming from a mage. Now that he knows how rare his abilities are, Eftel decides to practice his magic in secret. He does some research on the current state of magic, and learns that in this world, magic has actually regressed from its previous peak. In Eftel's previous life, the 4 emperors could reach the pinnacle of level 10 spells, which were considered extremely advanced magic. Somehow, these spells were lost with the passage of time, along with the ability to easily cast spells without incantations. Now, level 8 magic is considered the absolute peak, with anything above it classified as lost technology. Having learned all this, Eftel understands the gravity of his actions, knowing he could be in danger if he got exposed. Once Frazier wakes up, he takes the chance to wipe his memories. He tells the panicking man that he got knocked out by a stray chunk of wood during his spell demonstration. So Frazier thinks that all the wild spells Eftel used were just a nightmare. From that day onward, Eftel continues practicing swordplay with his brother while studying magic in secret. Even though he doesn't want to go to military school, the indomitable skill has made him frustrated with all his losses to Frazier. Now, he simply trains to get better for the sole purpose of getting revenge on his brother. Years later, Eftel determines that strengthening his body through martial arts might be the key to breaking the limits on his magic. After years of rigorous practice, he can easily chop through a heavy log like it's nothing. Later, Frazier brings over a special teacher to help him practice. It's a giant man called Moria, who happens to be one of his military colleagues. Surprised, Eftel turns around, impressed by the man's huge size. Moria also sizes him up, remaining silent for the moment. After Frazier introduces him, he challenges Eftel to a fight, offering him the first move. To his surprise, he just turns around and walks away without even giving him a chance to attack. After walking some distance, Moria suddenly stops and taunts Eftel for remaining motionless. He asks the young boy if he doesn't want to attack, knowing that he's immobilized by his immense pressure. Suddenly, he turns around and attacks without warning. Though Eftel dodges the attack, Moria taunts him for being so slow, so he casts a physical enhancement spell on his own body. With his abilities buffed, Eftel charges and attacks the big man, but it's still not enough to break through his defenses. Moria is impressed by Eftel's abilities, so he tells Frazier that he made a good recommendation. Eftel is surprised since he never asked his brother to recommend him, while Frazier praises him for having the ability to infuse his body and weapon with strengthening mana. However, Moria starts laughing, thinking it's hilarious that Eftel can only use his mana for pitiful enhancements instead of casting real spells with it. Angered by his taunts, he decides to beat the crap out of him the old-fashioned way. Eftel lunges at the laughing Moria with his sword, who instantly locks in and blocks his attack. As both of them lock swords, the big man starts mocking him for even dreaming about defeating him. He reminds Eftel that it'll be years before he grows big and strong enough to defeat him. Suddenly, Eftel slips from Moria's sight and appears by his side. Taking advantage of his distraction, he grabs him and throws him to the ground. Although Frazier never taught him hand-to-hand combat, it turns out that Eftel's body still remembers judo from his experiences in another life. As Moria gets up, Eftel thinks he'll get scolded. To his surprise, the big man laughs and gracefully accepts his defeat. He tells Eftel that he has passed his test. So the young boy finally learns that Moria is actually the headmaster of the Azul military school. Now that Eftel has passed his test, he will officially join the school once he has turned 15 years old. Though Frazier is happy for his brother's success, Moria reminds him not to get too cocky since he hasn't defeated him with a sword yet. Neither Moria nor Frazier realizes that Eftel never wanted military school to begin with, failing to notice the disappointed look on his face. From that day on, Eftel becomes even more secretive with his training. Although he accepts Frazier's help, he gets serious about magic and keeps on pushing himself in the wilderness. Years later, on a stormy day, Frazier is in the house with Eftel's mom, wondering where he is. Feeling sad, she admits that she rarely gets to see her son since he's always training alone somewhere. Meanwhile, in the forest, Eftel, now a teenager, chants his original level 10 spell. Since the spell is too powerful, it requires him to chant it with a magic formation to release its full power. Once the spell is complete, a loud thunderbolt roars down from the sky, but Eftel thinks it took him too long to cast it. Still, he feels satisfied, since he can hide his lightning spells in the storm's cover. Suddenly, a worried Frazier rushes towards him, unaware that his brother was the source of the lightning strike itself. Eftel reassures him that he's doing fine. but Frazier warns him to be more careful. Knowing his risky stunts, he feels worried that his brother will get hurt in the military school. Although Eftel nods at his words, he knows he won't be staying with Frazier much longer. Since both his mother and brother are fixated on turning him into a soldier, he has decided to leave them after becoming an adult. In this world, 15 is considered an adult age, so Eftel will become independent after one more year. After gaining freedom, he plans on joining a magic school on his own. Later, Frazier tells everyone about some good news, revealing that Duke Orcott has agreed to meet Eftel after so many years. Eftel's mom is overjoyed by this news, but he doesn't share her enthusiasm. However, she fails to notice his expression and wishes him the very best for his meeting. Even though Eftel has moved on from his deadbeat dad, he agrees to meet him for the sake of his mother's happiness. Both his mom and Frazier tear up, happy to see their young boy finally grown up. A few days later, Eftel arrives outside the Duke's mansion with his mom and Frazier. Even though he came for the sake of his two family members, he feels excited to see what his descendant looks like. After Frazier takes them inside, Duke Orcott silently observes them. Thinking that his dad is testing him, Eftel steps up and introduces himself. However, the Duke gets offended and tells him to pipe down. He reminds Eftel that he's only an illegitimate eyesore, so he doesn't want him to call him father. Eftel is naturally disappointed, but he remains silent. Duke Orcott sighs, thinking that Eftel is a disgrace to the Lightning Emperor for being born without magic talent. In reality, the actual Lightning Emperor is disappointed by his pathetic descendant. Then, Orcott brings up Eftel's admission into the military academy. On this topic, he starts laughing loudly, so Eftel wonders if he's secretly proud of him. Unfortunately, he soon learns that the Duke is only happy about his scholarship, because it means he won't have to pay for his son's food anymore. In the end, Eftel figures that his father is an irredeemable piece of human scum. As the poor boy wonders why he was called, the Duke calls to his son, Joachim, to test Eftel, thinking that Eftel will embarrass him in public. He orders Joachim to humiliate him by pretending it's a test. Eager to bully his illegitimate brother, Joachim grins sadistically, while Eftel prepares to face him head-on. Soon, they move out to a courtyard for the test battle. Frazier warns Eftel to be careful even if the battle is just a test. He explains that Joachim used to get the top score when he was in military school, so Eftel should be on guard against him at all times. Frazier warns him to surrender if things get bad, so Eftel nods, watching her son face off against the giant man with evil intentions. Eftel's mother feels extremely anxious. Then, Joachim throws him a sword. Although he catches it, the sword's heavy weight catches him off guard. Watching his reaction, Joachim explains that it's a sword made out of hardwood. Usually, these swords are only used for training because of their heavy weight. However, if used against another person, they are strong enough to shatter their bones. After this ominous explanation, Joachim asks Eftel if he knows what's about to happen. Eftel actually acts like he doesn't know, which completely ruins his suspenseful attitude. Angered, Joachim tells Eftel that he wants to teach him and his mother a lesson. He starts insulting his mom as well, claiming that she's a useless woman with zero talent. Joachim doesn't admit that his father fell for her looks. Instead, he claims that she actually begged him to have a child in hopes that her son could inherit his father's magical talent. Saying that Eftel's mom brought disgrace to his noble family, he arrogantly declares that he wants to kill her. However, since she is his father's partner, he cannot directly harm her. Now, Joachim thinks he has the perfect opportunity to vent his frustrations on Eftel instead. Hearing his disrespectful words, Eftel grows angry, but he remains silent. Then, Joachim gives him a head start by letting him attack first. Eftel doesn't move at first, feeling enraged that a prick that Joachim is actually one of his descendants. Watching him remain silent, Joachim thinks he's scared. He starts taunting him even more and hurls another disgusting insult at his mom. This is the final straw for Eftel, who suddenly rushes forward and attacks him. Although Joachim avoids it, he barely manages to save himself. Eftel doesn't give him any time to rest. He continues to land blow after blow, forcing the arrogant man to defend himself. As Joachim holds Eftel's sword, he uses physical enhancement to increase his strength even more. This allows him to push Joachim back. Losing his arrogant attitude from before, Joachim wonders if Eftel is the same kid he was just trash talking a few moments ago. Unfortunately, it's too late for him, since Eftel forces his sword back and smashes his head with its blunt wooden body. In front of everyone's shocked eyes, Joachim goes flying like a rag doll. Watching him lie on the ground, Eftel warns him that he'll end his life if he ever insults his mother again. Then, he goes straight to his mom and tells her it's time to go home. At first, Eftel's mom feels a little scared, thinking that someone strong has replaced her little boy. After he reassures her that he's the same little boy as before, she smiles and takes his hand. Then, Eftel turns to his father and politely thanks him for the invitation. This time, Orkot stays in line and responds in a respectful tone. He simply wishes Eftel good luck with his military exam, after which the family leaves. 2 weeks later, Eftel's mom serves dinner back in their house. They get a knock on their door, so Eftel's mother opens it. However, she gets shocked to see Frasier and Moria standing outside with an unfamiliar baby. It turns out that currently, the kingdom's royal knights and army have left for a battle ceremony with the neighboring kingdom's forces. Since this is the case, only the castle guard was left behind to protect the royal family. Although the castle guards were ready to do their jobs, Frasier had received intel that the minister was planning to assassinate a prince. Soon, Frasier and Moria received news that some barbarians had attacked the southern entrance to the capital. Since the castle guard was required to defend against the attack, Frasier took the baby prince and ran to the safest place he could think of. After hearing this, Eftel nods, trying to understand the situation. In this era, he knows that the previous king had 2 sons. Since the second son was more talented than the eldest, the king passed the throne to him. However, the second son was unable to have any male children. So it seemed as if the eldest son's child would become the next king. Somehow, the second king actually had a baby boy, so now the throne remains in his hands. Jealous of the second king's success, the minister wants to assassinate his prince so the eldest prince could regain the throne. After recalling this, Eftel thinks something is strange with Frasier's story. He asks how the barbarians even made it to the capital, since the castle guards were still on high alert. Hearing this, Frasier admits that his father was behind this conspiracy. Although it pains him to admit it, he knows that his father will benefit from the eldest son's authority, so he most likely assisted the barbarians. Moria wonders what they should do next, so Frasier explains that a return to the capital is impossible. For the time being, their only hope is to secretly cross the kingdom's borders and reunite the prince with the main army. Later, as Frasier and Moria prepare to leave, Eftel asks to join them. Although his mother gets extremely worried, Moria feels happy, thinking that they'll need his assistance. Despite his mother's worries, Eftel wants to go to repay one of the previous kings. In his previous life, the king had supported him and his friends greatly against the demon lord. Now, it's his time to help him by protecting his descendants. Soon, he leaves with Frasier and Moria. While making their way to the border, they all notice that the surroundings are surprisingly quiet. Suddenly, thunder starts booming nearby, and the group realizes that their current location is dangerous. They rush to escape the forest, failing to realize that someone is chasing them. However, when they finally arrive at the end of the forest, they all stop in shock. In front of them stands Duke Orkot and his entire army of mages. At first, Frasier is unable to believe that his father would do such a thing. Unfortunately, he also knows that his dad isn't here to give the young prince a royal welcome. Moria wonders if they should turn back, but Eftel points out that someone set the entire forest behind them on fire. Realizing they're cornered, Moria wonders what they should do. Since there's no way to run, Frasier decides to talk it out with his father. Hearing this, Moria is shocked. He warns Frasier not to trust the shady duke, but Frasier hopes that his father will be willing to listen. Then, he discards his weapons and moves out unarmed. After announcing his presence, he loudly asks the duke to turn back. He offers him a chance to negotiate, but Orkot doesn't move yet. Joachim asks him what to do next, so the duke gets off his mount to speak to his son directly. Watching his father walk towards him, Frasier's face lights up. Thinking that he's willing to negotiate, he moves closer to Orkot. However, the selfish duke coldly attaches a metal clip to Frasier's body and tells him to get out of the way. He uses a strong electric magic to shock him, knocking the poor man out of commission. After brutally tasing his own son, the duke starts laughing like he has achieved some kind of victory. Then, he orders his mage army to cast a powerful spell using a formation. Watching them arrange the spell, Eftel rushes out to protect his brother. However, Moria holds him back to prevent him from getting hurt. Then, a powerful lightning bolt strikes the area where Frasier had fallen. The lightning bolt's glow forces Eftel to close his eyes. When he opens them, he realizes that the entire ground has been ravaged by hot flames. He knows that Frasier was completely innocent, trying to protect a mere baby. Memories with his brother flash through Eftel's mind as he thinks back. Knowing that Orkot was so merciless towards his own kind son, he grows furious like never before. This time, he refuses to hold back a single bit. As the fires rage around them, Moria notices that Eftel's expression has changed. He feels worried for the young boy. but Eftel reassures him that he'll teach the Duke and his forces a proper lesson for killing his brother. He walks out, using a level 9 ice spell that instantly puts out all the fires, watching the ice devour the fire like it's nothing. The Duke and his entire army are completely speechless. Eftel knows that they're shocked since they've never seen a spell of this caliber before. Although he specializes in lightning magic, he knows that even his weaker water spells are too much for these buffoons to handle. Eftel reminds the Duke that he taught all his descendants how to fight as the Lightning Emperor. Now, he thinks they're a bunch of arrogant morons who can only bully the weak. After squinting for a bit, Orcott realizes that the boy walking towards him is his own son. His immediate reaction is to order his mages to use their spells to blast him to shreds. The mages nod and shoot a massive volley of level 5 fire arrows towards Eftel. To their shock, he remains completely unharmed behind a magic shield. However, even after seeing this, Orcott refuses to surrender. He orders his mages to use their ultimate spell, so they combine a level 6 lightning spell with their formation. Once the lightning spell is charged, they release the attack, using the name Eftel after their ancestor, the Lightning Emperor. However, Eftel only feels insulted by their pathetic attempt. Somehow, Eftel shrugs it off like it was nothing. Watching this scene, the mages are horrified. Eftel laughs in their faces before suddenly teleporting into their ranks. Before they can even react, he starts cutting through them like weeds. While chopping the mages up, he feels grateful that Frasier taught him how to use the sword. Now, he can use the same skills to avenge his fallen brothers. The remaining mages run away, terrified of Eftel's monstrous strength. However, he refuses to let them get away. He begins charging up his own lightning spell, proudly declaring that this is how a real Lightning Emperor fights. Then, he releases the Leave 10 lightning spell, Eftel, which torches the entire army of mages into cinders. After the dust from the explosion clears, Duke Orcott and Joachim are surprised that they're still alive. Eftel walks towards them, explaining that he didn't want the masterminds of the attack to die so easily. First, he knocks out Joachim before turning to Orcott. Although the Duke tries to protest, Eftel knocks him out all the same. Later, both of them are arrested by the royal family, found guilty of assassination. Both men get executed in public. Meanwhile, Eftel learns that Frasier actually survived the brutal spell. It turns out that he was wearing a family heirloom as a guarding charm, which saved his life. Seeing the charm, Eftel recalls that he gave this pendant as a gift to his descendants in his previous life. Overjoyed to see his brother safe, he smiles and hugs Frasier. Because Frasier risked his life to protect the young prince, the royal family transferred the power of the Duke to him. Now, Eftel is free to show his power to both Moria and Frasier, since he displayed it on the battlefield. Although both of them are surprised, they allow Eftel to keep the source of his power a secret. Then, Eftel announces that he wants to attend magic school. This time, Frasier doesn't stop him, since he knows his brother is capable of teaching an entire city on his own. With the approval from his brother, things are set for Eftel to begin a new journey in this life. A few days later, it's time for Eftel to leave. His mother, Frasier, and Moria all gather outside the house to say goodbye. With tears in her eyes, Eftel's mother tells him to go wherever he pleases and do as he wishes as an adult. Overcome by emotion, she jumps into his arms for one last hug. Holding her in his arms, Eftel thanks his mother for raising him with love and care all these years. Watching this scene, even the giant Moria starts crying. Soon, Eftel leaves after a tearful goodbye, determined to break through the limits of his magic on this new journey. After a while of traveling, he visits a roadside restaurant to take a break. Inside, he sees an arrogant magic student called Edwards, attended by a slave. In front of Edwards, an old man praises him for his talent and asks him to give his young student some pointers. However, the young mage gets angry at the old man for disturbing him. Although the old man hastily apologizes, Edwards starts humiliating him for no reason, acting like he just committed the world's most heinous crime by interrupting his tea time. Then, he tells the old man that even a single second of his time is worth more than his entire life. The old man explains that his students prepared a small banquet to welcome him, but Edward snorts at his offer. He tells the old man that he'd never give up a good time with his slave for a children's party. Watching this scene, Eftel is completely disgusted. Although it's legal in this world to own slaves, he finds Edward's behavior very filthy. The young demon girl's face reminds him of Merlin from his past life. If Eftel had not adopted her, she would have ended up the same as this girl. Despite feeling bad for her, he remains silent to avoid picking unnecessary fights. Suddenly, a man rushes into the restaurant, explaining that a dangerous monster has been spotted nearby. As Eftel goes out, he sees that the monster is a giant orc. Since the common people in this roadside area cannot handle the orc, Eftel wants to help them. However, he also doesn't want to expose his magic abilities too early. Thankfully, the old man from before tells the panicking people to calm down. He announces that the legendary mage Edwards is present, who happens to be a ranked adventurer. Since the giant orc is only a B-ranked monster, Edwards gets smug, thinking he's got a chance to show off. As the people around him start cheering for their savior, Edwards steps up to defeat the monster. He raises his wand and tells everyone that they're about to witness a divine miracle for free. Then, he casts a level 4 offensive spell, acting like it's the world's most advanced magic. The spell releases a fireball, which blows up as it hits the orc. Edwards turns around, thinking he has already won. Initially, the crowd cheers for him as well. However, Eftel remains serious as he realizes something is wrong. Soon, the audience also stops cheering as they see it. Since Edwards is turned away, he gets confused by their reactions. Then, he turns around, only to find the orc completely unharmed. Irritated by his attack, the orc steps closer to Edward. Finally, the dumb mage gets a closer look. Up close, he realizes that the giant orc is actually an orc berserker, which is the highest species of orc. Against this ferocious monster, a con artist like himself has no chance. Instead of trying his best to defend the innocent people, this coward turns around and instantly runs away. However, Edward's disgusting actions don't stop there. To give himself a higher chance of outrunning the orc, he actually casts a giant barrier spell, trapping the townsfolk with the orc berserker inside. Scared, the people beg him to let them out. Instead of apologizing, Edwards grins and mocks them for being insignificant cannon fodder. As the orc steps closer to the townsfolk, Eftel sighs and uses a level 6 spell to instantly shatter Edwards' barrier. Once everyone realizes they're free, they quickly run away from the scene. Edwards himself is shocked by Eftel's strength, while the old man notes that he even cast the spell without an incantation. Eftel is upset that he exposed some of his abilities, but he had no choice but to save the people's lives. Now, faced with the orc berserker, he wonders how to defeat it without looking too flashy. He decides to use a level 3 spell, using the explosion from it as a smokescreen to cast a level 9 spell to defeat the orc. With this plan in mind, he dodges the orc's attack and lobs a level 3 fireball at it. Watching the young boy use an advanced spell, the audience is shocked by Eftel's strength. Then, as the orc is distracted, he prepares to use his level 9 spell. Suddenly, the orc starts screaming in pain, and it quickly succumbs to the flames before collapsing dead. While the townsfolk cheer for Eftel's victory, Edwards wonders how his level 3 spell could kill the orc. The old man explains that although Edwards used a level 4 spell, he has never refined his magic to increase its potency. On the other hand, Eftel has clearly mastered and refined his magic, so even his level 3 spell is far stronger than Edwards' fake magic. Hearing this, Eftel finally understands why the outcome was so different. In his second life, refining magic and mastering the foundations was extremely common before learning more advanced spells. Now, 400 years later, it seems that young mages like Edwards become arrogant and move up the ranks without putting in any hard work. Finally, Eftel realizes that he accidentally gained way more attention than he planned to. Taking advantage of the townsfolk's shock, he runs away from the scene. Before leaving the area, he stops to give Edwards a final lesson. He points out that the old man has mastered magic to a much higher degree than him, even if he's weaker. Still, this makes him Edwards' senior by experience. Eftel tells the arrogant young mage to tone his pride down and respect his elders. Hearing his life's experience validated by such a powerful mage, the wronged old man starts crying with happiness. Then, Eftel reminds Edward that he basically attempted to massacre an entire town by trapping them with that orc. He labels the arrogant man a criminal and points out that criminals have no right to own slaves. After saying this, he orders Edward to release his slave girl. Hearing this, the girl's face brightens with joy and adoration. Feeling completely defeated and humiliated, Edwards collapses on his knees and agrees. Finally, Eftel runs away while the impressed girl watches him with adoring eyes. She follows him on his journey while trying to hide her presence. Naturally, Eftel easily detects her and wonders why she's sticking with him. Feeling nervous from his questioning, the girl starts stuttering. She takes some time to calm down before suddenly asking him to become her new master. Eftel is stunned by her request, but the girl explains that since she has escaped Edward's ownership, she will be arrested and handed over to a new master. Desperate to survive, the girl kneels in front of him and begs him to take her in. Seeing her pitiful state, Eftel realizes that the girl is speaking the truth. Because Edwards had placed a slave seal on her, her status as a slave wouldn't change so easily because he released her without the paperwork. Now that the girl is free, any random creep could kidnap her, and she would suffer an even worse fate. After thinking about this, Eftel asks the girl how she became a slave in the first place. She explains that her family has been enslaved for generations after the 4 emperors defeated the demon lord years ago. Although the girl belongs to a noble family, she and her relatives continue to be abused by evil humans. She explains that one of her ancestors is called Merlin, who is the headmistress of a prestigious magic academy called Altina. Hearing this name, Eftel's attitude completely changes. Shocked, he asks the girl to tell him more about Merlin. The girl is confused by his sudden interest, since Merlin is quite a famous person in their world. Still, she tells Eftel that Merlin is one of the students of the legendary Lightning Emperor from the past. As she reveals that Merlin is the strongest mage in the world, Eftel tears up with joy, realizing that he is not alone, even 400 years later. Although he had expected Merlin to be dead by now, she is still alive and thriving because demons have a much longer lifespan than humans. Unable to abandon Merlin's relative, he decides to accept the girl as his own slave. Then, he asks for her name and learns that she's called Anastasia. Happy to be saved, she thanks him for accepting her. Later, they stop by a city. Anastasia wonders what Eftel wants to do here, so he explains that he'll apply for the magic school. This surprises her, since she knows he's already too strong for school. Then, Eftel starts moving to book an inn. Suddenly, Anastasia's stomach rumbles with an embarrassed growl, so he changes his destination to a restaurant. However, the restaurant is actually a 5-star establishment. Standing in front of the grand building, Anastasia thinks the place is too fancy for her. Still, Eftel encourages her to come with him. When he heads inside, she is forced to follow behind. Inside, the waiters are visibly disturbed by Eftel's slave. Still, they remain polite to their patron and arrange a table for 2. Anastasia looks around, impressed by the fancy interior. However, she overhears some of the rich diners making disgusted remarks about her. Even the restaurant waiters wonder if Eftel is just a kid playing around with a few banknotes. He chooses to ignore them and instead tells Anastasia to order whatever she wants. However, he realizes that the young girl is actually kneeling instead of sitting on a chair. Anastasia explains that it's a slave's duty to always be ready for their master. Eftel doesn't care and tells her to sit on the chair anyway, but she still feels hesitant. Seeing this, he wonders how long the poor girl has been abused to have such low self-esteem. Then, he orders her with his authority as her master to sit. Finally, Anastasia accepts and sits in front of him. After sitting down, she feels happy to receive such good treatment. Suddenly, the restaurant's head waiter interrupts their moment. He rudely tells Eftel that this restaurant is only meant to serve high-class customers. He also claims that lowly slaves are not allowed to sit on their fine chairs. Accusing Eftel of being a delusional kid, he wonders if the young boy even has the money to pay for his food. In response, Eftel plops down a bunch of gems as payment. The waiter's eyes pop out of his socket as he identifies the gems as dragon drops. Even a single drop is valued at over 500 gold coins, so Eftel can practically buy his entire restaurant with this money. In reality, Eftel has a billion more of these gems after his father died and left all his fortune behind. Finally, the waiter gets humbled and arranges a VIP room for Eftel. With no more interruptions, Eftel orders a grand feast. Seeing all the luxurious dishes, Anastasia doesn't think she's worthy of eating them. However, Eftel asks her to treat it as a gift from him. He tells her that it's his way of showing appreciation for her. Hearing this, she is even more pleasantly surprised. Eftel knows that as a slave, Anastasia doesn't consider herself worthy of anything good, so he wants her to get rid of his habit. He admits that even as a kind man, he might make a mistake and treat her wrongly in the future. If that happens, he wants her to express her anger at him without hesitation. Unfortunately, Anastasia has been abused so much that she doesn't even know how to get angry at others. Eftel is shocked by this, but he does his best to teach her how to express her feelings. The next day, he buys some real clothes for her, dressed up in fine clothes. Anastasia thanks Eftel for his gift. Soon, they visit Krone Magic Academy, a prestigious institution, to attempt its entrance exam. Anastasia wonders why Eftel wants to join school despite his abilities. Even with his abilities, Eftel explains that he has no credentials since he's a random 15-year-old. In order to get a good job, he needs a certificate from a prestigious school as proof of his skills. Then, he tells Anastasia to attempt the entrance exam with him. Anastasia hesitates, thinking there's no way she can pass. However, Eftel knows that as a descendant of Merlin, she has far superior talent compared to the average human. Suddenly, a burly examiner steps up from a roof and announces that the exam is about to begin. While Anastasia is nervous, Eftel grins, eager for the challenge. The examiner, France, introduces himself to the applicants. Then, he announces that the first round of their test will be a battle royal. all students will be divided into large groups, and whoever is one of the last 5 standing will move on to the next round. After making his announcement, Franz casually looks on. Being a B-ranked adventurer, he feels satisfied with his easy job of observing this batch of rookies. As the groups are settled and the fight begins, he expects the weakest students to be knocked out first. To his shock, from Eftel's group, a tough-looking guy gets absolutely yeeted into the air. This big guy is followed by several other strong students, who are all kicked out by Eftel. Watching Eftel fight, Franz realizes that he's using magical enhancements to improve his physical strength. Aside from him, Anastasia uses a level 3 wind spell to knock out a group of students as well. Watching this, the audience is shocked. In their eyes, only a senior student can use spells of this caliber. Anastasia gets embarrassed by all the attention, but Eftel wonders why she used an incarnation for such a basic spell. Hearing this, Franz is stunned. Earlier, he was thinking that Eftel was some kind of dark horse, but now it seems like he's just a one-trick pony with no knowledge of magic. Confused by Eftel's remark, Anastasia also tells him that magic spells cannot be cast without chanting. Eftel doesn't agree with this. To prove her wrong, he casts level 4 spells in parallel without multiple incantations, destroying the rest of their opponents in the group. Seeing this ridiculous feat, the entire audience is flabbergasted, since chantless magic is practically alien technology in their world. Afterward, Eftel and Anastasia move on to a written test. Eftel already knows all of the answers from his life as the Lightning Emperor, but he thinks that the questions are too long for the given time. After a while, he manages to complete all the questions. Hearing this, Anastasia is shocked even more. Eftel wonders what's wrong, so she explains that all students are only supposed to answer the questions that are relevant to the field they want to apply for. Finally, Eftel realizes how badly he messed up, thinking that the academy will reject him for cheating. Later, news of his incredible test scores reaches the school headmaster. At first, the old headmaster is shocked, unable to believe this news. Then, when he learns about Eftel's name, he thinks that Eftel is trying to blaspheme the legacy of the old Lightning Emperor by using his name and cheating on an incredible test score. However, Franz enters the room and informs him of Eftel's parallel magic stunt. This news is even more shocking than his written test results, since the parallel magic spell could not have been fake. Hearing this, the academy's teachers fall into depression, since even they can't execute such an advanced technique. Finally, the headmaster accepts Eftel's results as legitimate, wondering if he really is related to the Lightning Emperor. A few days later, the results for the entrance exams are out. While Eftel searches for his name on the list, Anastasia happily tells him that she got admitted into the special class. He congratulates her for passing and wishes her good luck before searching his own name again. Unfortunately, after reading the entire list, Eftel realizes that his name is not present on the board. He wonders if the academy thought he was cheating and rejected him for this reason. Hearing this, Anastasia is angered since her master took the test fair and square. Against Eftel's protests, she marches away to complain to the academy's administration. However, then she spots something on a nearby notice. It turns out that Eftel's score was so extraordinary that the academy made a special category for him as the super elite genius student. Hearing this, Eftel is relieved that he made it, but he feels worried that receiving so much attention will cause issues for him. Afterward, Anastasia informs him that as the special student, he will be the representative of all the school's magic students. In addition, he will receive free tuition, housing, and food for the duration of his studies. Eftel is impressed by all these perks, but he still thinks that the school is treating him like some sort of celebrity. All he wanted was to peacefully research magic in the school library to find breakthroughs in magical aptitude. Now, he feels like that peaceful student life is at risk. While thinking about this, Eftel walks through the school hallways with Anastasia. Coincidentally, he notices an elf woman standing nearby. At first, Eftel doesn't recognize her, but then he realizes that this woman is literally his most precious student, Merlin. Unwilling to be discovered by her, he hides behind a pillar to get a closer look. Merlin is busy discussing something with school staff, so she doesn't notice her own master behind her. Although Eftel is happy to see her, he also knows that Merlin will instantly recognize him, even if he has become a young boy, in case his identity gets leaked. Eftel's chances of quietly doing research in the shadows will be doomed. To avoid grabbing her attention, he quickly takes Anastasia and starts walking away. However, Merlin suddenly feels like her master is standing right behind her. She quickly turns around, finding nothing. Then, she finally notices Eftel trying to sneak away. She calls to Eftel to stop, but he continues moving. Refusing to give up, Merlin runs after him and blocks his way. Shocked by his appearance, she wonders if the young boy standing in front of her is really her master. As he refuses to speak, Merlin asks him if he's related to the Lightning Emperor. Eftel is surprised that she noticed so quickly. Unfortunately, even though he wants to catch up with Merlin again, he doesn't want his identity to be leaked at school. Instead of answering her, Eftel runs away with Anastasia. After getting to a safe distance, he asks Anastasia if she recognized Merlin. She shakes her head, explaining that she has never met Merlin before. Although the two of them are related, Merlin was born 10 generations before her. Hearing this, Eftel realizes that their relationship only exists in name. In reality, they're far enough apart to be complete strangers. Now, he finally understands why Anastasia looks so different from Merlin. Eftel also worries about why Merlin is visiting his academy since she's the headmistress somewhere else. Later, the Crone Magic Academy holds its official orientation ceremony for all new students. The headmaster delivers the opening speech before introducing Merlin to all students. He explains that Merlin is here as a guest to show them how magicians of other species practice their techniques. Hearing this, Eftel finally understands why he bumped into her here. Merlin steps forward, introducing herself as the headmistress of Altina Academy. While she delivers her speech, Eftel feels relieved that she's not a teacher. However, he still feels worried about running into her while she's still here. Suddenly, the headmaster calls Eftel, as the student representative, to come deliver his speech as well. Hearing his name, Merlin turns around, and Eftel sheepishly raises his hand. Soon, all eyes turn towards him, and everyone wonders why this new hotshot student has the same name as the Lightning Emperor. Now that the cat is out of the bag, Merlin knows he's hiding something from her. She stares intensely at him, feeling betrayed that he avoided talking to her. After the ceremony, Eftel receives lots of attention from his female classmates. All of the girls were charmed after hearing his achievements in the entrance exam, so they try to get closer to him. Thankfully, as Eftel starts to get overwhelmed, Merlin walks up to him. Her appearance drives the female students away, but Eftel faces a new problem as she brings out his examination results. Watching her confront him so boldly, Eftel realizes that Merlin has become a lot bolder after growing up. She sits in front of him and waits for him to speak. Since he remains silent, Merlin asks if he knows about reincarnation. Hearing this, Eftel is stunned. Although Merlin has always been smart, he is still surprised that she figured out his identity so quickly. Still, on the surface, he acts like he has no idea what she's talking about. Merlin ignores his fake reaction. Instead, she points out that his exam score was so high that he could easily be one of the 4 emperors pretending to be a student. In addition, although all of the teachers knew his answers were correct, none of them understood his solution process. The reason for this is that Eftel's answers were all supported by magic theory over 400 years old. Although none of the school teachers knew them, Merlin did, because she learnt magic from him all those years ago. She asks him to explain these strange answers, so Eftel lowers his head. At the time of the test questions were so simple for him that he never realized the world had regressed. In his mind, he was just writing normal answers, when in reality, he had answered them in an ancient language. From all of Eftel's actions, Merlin thinks he resembles someone she deeply cares about. Then, she apologizes for confronting him so aggressively, since she gets heated whenever something concerns her late master. Although even Merlin thinks that reincarnation is too unrealistic, she knows that the young Eftel is somehow related to her master, because he kept refusing to talk to her. She thinks that he's hiding an important secret. For a moment, Eftel sighs, wondering if he should tell her the truth. Unfortunately, he's too scared to tell her to protect his own student life. Nearby, the other students in the cafeteria watch on. As they all hear their conversation, they wonder if Eftel is somehow related to demons. If he was, it would explain why he got such abnormal results in the exam. Finally, to protect himself, Eftel decides to lie to Merlin. He claims that the original Lightning Emperor had a secret lover. Merlin is shocked, but she continues to listen. Eftel claims that the Lightning Emperor had a child with his lover, but because the child's magical talent was too great, he was kept secret from the world. Eventually, the child grew up practicing the Lightning Emperor's technique in an isolated village. After hearing everything, Merlin gets enraged, thinking he's lying to her. To convince her, Eftel reveals the old Lightning Emperor's darkest secret, that he died miserable and alone, weeping for his lack of magical talent. At this, Merlin quickly silences him. She reminds him that the Lightning Emperor's secret has been hidden away to protect his reputation. Then, after warning him to remain silent about the 4 emperors, she lets him go. Finally, Merlin decides to believe his story, since he knows so much about her master. Eftel nods, claiming that he really is a distant descendant of the original Lightning Emperor. Inside, he feels extremely guilty about lying, but he thinks he had no other choice. Although Merlin is upset that her master never told her, she feels happy to see his descendant again. Now, she wants to compare her abilities with Eftel. Even if he's the Lightning Emperor's descendant, Merlin proudly proclaims that she is also the Lightning Emperor's successor in magic. After so many years, she wants to test the results of her hard work against someone related to the Lightning Emperor. She challenges Eftel to face her in a mock battle, which stuns him. At first, he wants to refuse, since fighting Merlin would expose his true strengths to everyone. However, facing his own student's brave challenge, a fire burns in his heart. Wanting to see how far his student has grown, Eftel confidently accepts Merlin's challenge. After Eftel agrees, news of the mock battle quickly spreads around school. Now, everyone is excited to watch Eftel the monstrous genius against Merlin, one of the world's most famous mages. Usually, the ceremony is supposed to humble all the students in the audience, showing them the difference between a student and a teacher. However, because Eftel wants to see how far Merlin has come in the past 400 years, he doesn't plan on letting her humble him at all. As the two of them face off, the announcer hypes up the whole stadium for the exciting fight. Even the old headmaster watches the battle with intense concentration, forgetting his own rank. Although everyone in the audience knows that Merlin is one of the strongest people in the world, they wonder if the young genius Eftel can perform a miracle and defeat her. Down in the stadium, Eftel is the first to make a move. Instead of beginning a fight, he asks Merlin to show her skills. Just as she agrees, he launches a level 6 fire blast at her without any warning. Shocked, Merlin barely dodges the attack, while the audience goes wild at this scene. For a moment, it looks like the attack caught Merlin completely off guard. Then, her voice rings out, confident and unshaken. With a swing of her hand, she dispels the giant flame wall using a level 7 perfect wall. Seeing this, Eftel is pleasantly surprised by her strength. Meanwhile, Merlin starts to take him more seriously after seeing his abilities. Still, she refuses to back down so easily. After all, she wants to prove that she didn't just waste her time studying with the original Lightning Emperor. With a determined stare, Merlin unleashes a level 6 flame wall of her own right back at Eftel. He grins confidently, using the same level 7 perfect wall to block the spell. As the attack lands, Merlin wonders what Eftel thinks about her strength. Feeling the impact, he admits that this is the first time he has seen such a high-quality spell in his new life. His cocky grin angers Merlin, who flies into the sky and launches a level 6 fireball from above. This time, it looks like the spell made a direct hit against Eftel. Seeing this, the audience is shocked, wondering if the fight is already over. Merlin floats back to the ground, proud of her sudden move. Usually, it takes mages a period of time to recharge before they can use the same spell again. However, through the Lightning Emperor's method, she has increased her mana pool and learned the techniques to recast the same spell instantly. Suddenly, Eftel's voice rings out, admitting that Merlin used a good technique. Then, he uses an instant recast as well, using a level 7 Evil Frost spell to freeze the scorching flames. Seeing this, Merlin is shocked that Eftel predicted her move and prepared the perfect counter spell in advance. After blocking her flames, he follows up with an Ice Titan attack, launching a sharp icicle towards her. In his mind, Eftel knows that the instant recast is a technique he created in his past life to keep up with the monstrous strength of the other 4 emperors. Now, he wants to see how far his student has pushed this technique. Watching the icicle shoot towards her, Merlin is shocked by Eftel's efficiency. Although she uses another perfect wall to block it, she starts feeling exhausted from all the heavy spells. Unfortunately, she gets no time to rest as Eftel continues to bombard her with even more multi-casted Ice Titans. In response, she also casts multiple perfect shields to block each icicle. Impressed by her stamina, Eftel tests her with a final icicle spear, this one 10 times larger and stronger than the others. Merlin notes the strength of this spell, wondering if Eftel is testing her. Enraged that a mere student has pushed her so far, she casts a powerful perfect wall, stopping the icicle in its tracks. However, she gets shocked as her wall struggles under the icicle's force. Soon, cracks start appearing in her wall despite all her efforts. Merlin is shocked, wondering why her spell can't block it, even though she used a similar level of mana to chant it. Hearing this, Eftel tells her that she made a mistake in her chant, so her spell can't defeat his, even if they're at the same level. At first, Merlin snaps at him to shut up, but then she realizes something. The way Eftel is pointing out her mistakes in the middle of the battle reminds her of her own teacher. Only the old Lightning Emperor was patient enough and passionate about teaching to actively correct her mistakes during a fight. As she thinks about this, she gets even more determined to show her abilities to Eftel. Finally, she multicasts another spell wall, which allows her to destroy the giant icicle. This time, even Eftel is impressed by her display. Usually, just one level 7 magic spell is enough to drain a mage's entire mana supply. Seeing Merlin cast 2 of them at the same time, he knows she's got much more gas left in the tank. However, even Merlin is struggling from the backlash of using so many powerful spells in this short period. Taking advantage of this, Eftel rushes towards her and attacks with a level 7 spell. Somehow, she reacts just in time, using a level 8 teleport skill to warp right behind them. Then, she finishes the match with a fire blast. Watching this scene, the audience is now completely silent, losing all its previous excitement. All students and professors watched, horrified, wondering if Merlin went too far and actually killed Eftel with her final attack. Just then, Merlin sighs, then smiles, knowing Eftel is standing right behind her. Even though she did her best to predict his moves, he was always 2 steps ahead and planning even further. Since she can use a teleport spell, naturally, Eftel also prepared one in advance. His far-sighted planning reminds Merlin of her teacher, who used the same techniques. Usually, Merlin would be angry at him for toying with her in a fight. But in this moment, she feels happy to see a glimpse of her old teacher again. Seeing her smile, Eftel also feels happy. But then she asks him to survive one last attack from her. This time, Merlin promises to use all her strength in her final blow. Surprised, Eftel also gets serious. Then, she charges a level 8 lightning spell called Thor's Hammer. Seeing this, Eftel isn't impressed at all. For a mage as strong as her, he was expecting her to use a much more advanced spell. At his confused reaction, Merlin warns him not to underestimate her secret technique. As she attacks with the spell, Eftel still doesn't understand it, since he can't see anything special. Then, he finally notices that she is casting another Thor's Hammer with her other hand. Although a level 8 spell is impressive, for Eftel's level, it's nothing special on its own. However, multicasting 2 level 8 spells is a whole different beast. As Merlin attacks with both spells, he dodges, feeling impressed. Still, he doesn't feel too much pressure. Then, she does something that truly leaves him stunned, using her foot to cast a third Thor's Hammer, with 3 different spells targeting him from different directions. Even Eftel struggles to dodge. But Merlin isn't done just there, as she casts a 4th Thor's Hammer with her other foot, controlling all 4 level 8 spells at the same time. Finally, Eftel realizes why Merlin was so confident in her special technique. Even he, as the Lightning Emperor, is greatly impressed by her skill. Then, as Merlin floats to the sky, preparing to unleash her final assault, he starts laughing from pure pride and joy. He watches as Merlin screams with power in the sky. Even in his past life as the Lightning Emperor, he never saw such a creative way to use the most powerful magic techniques together. Now, he thinks that all these 400 years were not a waste for Merlin at all. Seeing her like this, he feels glad that she grew so much from his teachings. As her teacher, he wants to honor her efforts of the past 400 years by using his full power against her. With the same confident smile, he begins preparing his level 10 original spell, Eftel, to meet Merlin's final attack head-on. As she releases all 4 Thor hammers at once, he grins and raises his hand to the sky, releasing Eftel. In an instant, the level 10 spell completely overshadows Merlin's lightning, erupting into the sky with a violent burst. Watching the terrifying spell shoot towards her, Merlin loses her composure from shock. Even among the world's most powerful mages, she doesn't know anyone who can withstand her quadruple-layered Thor's hammers. In this moment, Merlin knows that the power Eftel is using is far stronger than anyone she has met in the past 400 years, and she becomes sure that the young boy standing in front of her is her old teacher himself. With tears in her eyes, she waits for her impending doom. However, at the last moment, Eftel cancels his spell, allowing the lightning charge to return to the atmosphere. Defeated, Merlin slowly falls towards the ground in front of the stunned audience. After landing on the ground, she smiles, knowing for sure that Eftel is her old teacher in a new body. As he walks towards her, she asks him if he has reincarnated into a new body. For a moment, Eftel smiles awkwardly, knowing that he can't hide from his student anymore. He finally admits to being the Lightning Emperor before rubbing Merlin's head. Although he's in the body of a child, he still treats her like a kid, praising her for all her hard work. As she receives his encouragement, Merlin finally dares to believe that he's back. Throughout all these years, she did her best to do good on her teacher's legacy. Now, seeing him alive and well, she feels incredibly grateful that she could show him the results of her hard work after so long. Overwhelmed by happiness, she cries tears of joy, so Eftel gently chides her. Then, Anastasia rushes to the stadium, worried for her master. As soon as she appears, Merlin gets suspicious of Eftel, wondering why he has a slave at this age. He quickly explains that Anastasia is just a girl in need, so he is helping her for a little while. Although Merlin isn't fully convinced, she doesn't push him for more answers. Anastasia shyly greets her, so Merlin returns the greeting. However, they get no time to speak as the entire school rushes towards them, wanting to cheer Eftel for his incredible victory. Though he's shocked at first, he knows this reaction is completely normal. Merlin asks Eftel why he even joined the magic school since he's still at full power. He explains that he just wanted to study magic, so she understands that he wants to push the boundaries of magic research. Suddenly, she grabs his hand and runs away to save him from the school horde. Behind the two of them, Anastasia runs hard to stay close to her master. After a long while, they arrive in a peaceful forest. Seeing the familiar landscape, Eftel realizes that he has already been to this place in his past life. Soon, his suspicions are confirmed as Merlin points to a giant building, which used to be his mansion in his previous life. Seeing the mansion in good condition, Eftel notes that Merlin has been taking good care of it. She turns around and asks him to wait outside so she can take care of some paperwork. This confuses Eftel, so Merlin tells him that she'll register him and Anastasia as her adopted children and personal apprentices at the school. Now that her master is back, there's no way she'll let him get away from her. She reminds Eftel that if he registers in her academy, he can use all the facilities he wants. Also, Merlin clearly just wants to spend more time with him in her own school. Seeing her excitement, Eftel is taken aback for a bit, but then he realizes that her offer is truly suitable, because Merlin can keep his secret. He won't have to worry about getting exposed or bothered by other students at her school. Thinking about this, he feels truly grateful to her and accepts her offer. A few days later, Eftel and Anastasia have enrolled into the school. With Merlin behind his back, Eftel is free to explore the school treasury to retrieve an important treasure from his previous life. As they walk into the treasury hall, Anastasia feels nervous from the dark atmosphere. Then, once they get close to the treasury, a lamp falls out of nowhere, out of which a genie appears. Thinking that Eftel and Anastasia are a bunch of snooping kids, the genie warns them to get lost. Eftel calmly explains that he's not a thief, saying that he's only here to get his sword called Reikiri. This angers the genie even more, since Reikiri is an important treasure that the old Lightning Emperor brought back after the war against the Demon Lord. Hearing this, Eftel agrees, knowing that Reikiri was strong enough to defeat his level 10 Eftel spell in the hands of the Demon Lord. Meanwhile, the genie clearly thinks that he's just a kid trying to have fun. Considering Eftel as one of Merlin's students, he tells him to leave before he gets angry. Still, Eftel tries to negotiate, so the genie slams his fist in anger. In his rage, he accidentally reveals that he's already mad at Merlin for making him the guard dog of this treasury. He calls her an old hag, claiming that her teacher, Eftel, was also a talentless hack. Since Eftel lacked magical talent, the genie accuses him of cheating his way into becoming one of the 4 emperors. After venting his frustration, the genie starts laughing. But Eftel gets annoyed by his attitude. He coldly threatens him to reveal the sword's location. At first, the genie is a little shocked, but then he points to the sword's location anyway. Since the sword is being guarded by a powerful spell, the genie thinks that a kid like Eftel couldn't take it even if he tried. Then, Eftel starts walking towards the sword like he doesn't care. Expecting him to fail, the genie doesn't even turn around. However, to his shock, he easily casts a level 8 dismantle spell which removes the protective formation and unlocks the sword. After retrieving the sword, Eftel checks it out and feels satisfied by its condition. Behind them all, Merlin walks over, furious at the genie's words. It turns out that the lamp-dwelling fool was too loud with his insults, so she heard everything. As she starts screaming at the genie, Eftel walks over, which instantly calms her down. He explains that he wanted to retrieve Reikiri, so Merlin nods. Watching them interact so casually, the genie realizes that Merlin is calling this random boy with Eftel's name. Now that he has seen Eftel's capabilities, he wonders if he just insulted the real Lightning Emperor to his face. Soon enough, the humbled genie starts begging Eftel for forgiveness. Eftel easily forgives him before asking him to remember his face in the future. The genie nods, so Merlin also warns him to never call her an old hag again. As she yells at the genie, Eftel laughs and jokes around with her. Anastasia watches, pleased by the atmosphere, but she feels strange while looking at Eftel's sword. Later, the 3 of them explore the city together. Even after 4 years, the place has not changed too much, which surprises Eftel. Merlin points to a familiar shop that made the decoration for her room, explaining that she's asked the owner to make uniforms for both Eftel and Anastasia. Then, they have fun together, reading in libraries, getting their uniforms, and having tea in a restaurant. After tea, Merlin asks Eftel if he wants to do anything else. He thinks about it, realizing that he's free for now. Behind them, the tea shop owner explains that their town is currently hosting a treasure hunt. In this treasure hunt, the participants can win a free trip to the hot springs. Aside from this, they're allowed to keep all the treasures they find. The three of them thank the owner for the suggestion and go on their way. Merlin urges Eftel to participate in the treasure hunt. Wanting to visit the hot springs, he doesn't seem too interested. But Anastasia suddenly stops walking after spotting a poster for the treasure hunt. Wondering what she wants, he realizes that she's interested in the treasure dolls. Although Anastasia clearly wants to go, she feels too embarrassed to ask Eftel for a favor, so she remains silent. Seeing her hesitation, he decides to participate in the treasure hunt anyway. Hearing this, Merlin also gets excited for a chance to visit the hot springs. At this, Anastasia shyly explains that she's not too interested in the hot springs, which confuses her. Still, she refuses to speak further, so Eftel tells Merlin to drop the subject. Then, he reads the rules of the treasure hunt and learns that they're hiding the treasures with concealment spells. Anastasia wonders if he can use the same spell he did in the treasury. But Merlin explains that it would disable other important spells around town as well. Hearing this, Eftel confidently claims that he can use disable magic only on the magic spells cast by the person who hid the treasures. Even Merlin is afraid that this would be too difficult. But Eftel easily casts a level 5 disable spell in front of her. As the spell disables the concealment effects, they easily find all of the dolls hidden around town. Some time later, Eftel's party wins the treasure hunt event. While Merlin is overjoyed by her hot springs trip, Anastasia smiles at the doll in her arms. After some time, she stops to speak. Smiling, she explains that she wanted this doll because its smile reminds her of Eftel's. Hearing this, Eftel is a bit offended that he looks like the ugly doll. But he understands Anastasia's pure intentions. Though he laughs at her simple wish, something else seems to be on his mind. Later, as he's having dinner alone, Merlin enters his room with a serious tone. Eftel asks what she wants to talk about, so she explains that she closely observed Anastasia's body in the hot spring bath. After getting a closer look at her slave seal, Merlin realized that the seal was much more dangerous than normal. She wonders if Eftel is aware of this, so he nods silently. At this, she gets outraged, asking why he's keeping a time bomb like Anastasia around. However, he gets unusually angry with her, saying that it was his decision to stay with the girl. After saying this, he forbids Merlin to speak further, so she nods, knowing that her teacher is aware of the risks. The next day, it's time for Eftel and Anastasia to have their first class in school. Since Altina Magic School is a demon school, all of the students are shocked to see a human. As Anastasia walks with Eftel, she hears the demons mocking him for being an inferior creature. Naturally, this causes her to feel upset. Instead of being offended by the demons' taunts, Eftel calmly reminds her that it's normal for them to be surprised by his presence. Internally, he doesn't care what the other students think about him as long as he gets to study in peace. Soon, they enter their classroom, where their classmates have similar reactions. One of them is Abe, who is the highest scorer of the class. He taunts Eftel for smelling like a filthy human, but he ignores him and starts walking over to his seat. Then, Eftel notices Anastasia frozen in shock, so he asks her what's wrong. At the sound of his voice, she snaps out of her shock and starts apologizing. Then, a girl called Maria walks over to Eftel, wondering how he can even attend their school. Hearing her, Abe grins, saying that Eftel must be some rich kid who bought his way into the school. In reality, he's not wrong, since Merlin literally abused her authority to force him into the school, so Eftel can't argue. Although he remains silent, Abe keeps taunting him to remind him of his inferiority. In response, Eftel politely promises to do his best, which sets Abe's competitive spirit on fire. He reminds Eftel that the school's entry test is the strictest in the world, meant to filter out the best students from superior races like demons and elves. In Abe's eyes, a measly human can only buy their way into the school since their talents are usually inferior. After Abe finishes speaking, Maria apologizes to Eftel for his arrogance. Still, she is also unwilling to accept him so easily. Although she doesn't discriminate based on race, Maria still hopes that Eftel can keep up with his classmates' talents. Then, she leaves after warning him to stay away from the demons. Once she's gone, Eftel thinks about her words. In reality, the demons aren't wrong about being superior in magic talent. Even Merlin, whom Eftel adopted as his daughter, has great talent because she's a demon. Usually, most humans don't have the dedication to practice magic to the level of the 4 emperors, so it's normal for these students to underestimate him. As he's thinking about this, Merlin enters the classroom out of nowhere. At her appearance, all the students are shocked, since the headmistress doesn't normally teach them. Seeing her in the class, Eftel already knows why she's here. Suddenly, Abe stands up to address Merlin. In his deluded mind, the great headmistress of the school must be here to personally teach a student as great as him. Sadly, Merlin has no idea who he is, so he has to explain that he's actually the top scorer. Even after his explanation, Merlin clearly doesn't care about this hotshot. Instead, she openly announces to the class that she's only here for Eftel. These words set off a bomb, as the students had already been angry at the human for breathing the same air as them. Now, he's in an even bigger spotlight to receive all their hate. However, Abe thinks that Eftel is simply an extremely important figure from the human race, so Merlin was required to take special care of him. Hearing this, Merlin tells Abe that he should stop judging others by their looks. Then, she proudly tells the class that Eftel will shatter all their beliefs about a human's talent. After explaining this, she also asks Eftel to take care of her, which leaves everyone completely stunned. Throughout her whole speech, Eftel himself has been fuming with rage for getting so much attention. As the target of all the demons, his peaceful student life will most likely stay a dream forever. Later, after class, Abe confronts Eftel, asking about his identity. Eftel tells him he's nobody important, but the conceited demon refuses to believe him. Instead, he accuses Merlin of being a perverted old hag who is playing favorites with a cute young student. At his disgusting remark, Eftel warns Abe to be respectful to the headmistress. However, the arrogant demon doesn't care about him, so Eftel hopes he can avoid him in the future. In the next class, Merlin asks the students if they would like to volunteer as a magic swordsman. After making this announcement, she looks over to Eftel, clearly expecting him to take the lead. Afraid of getting even more attention, the poor guy tries to hide from her. Merlin still insists on taking him, but luckily, Abe stands up as a volunteer. Hearing this, Eftel thinks he's saved, but Merlin doesn't feel satisfied with Abe. Out of nowhere, Anastasia raises her hand to volunteer. Although Eftel is surprised by her eagerness, he still feels happy to stay out of trouble. After some hesitation, Anastasia tells Merlin that she's nominating Eftel for the volunteer position, which shatters his entire world, while Abe goes insane with rage. Later, Merlin holds a competition between Eftel and Abe to decide which of them is the stronger swordsman. Before beginning the match, she warns both contestants that using magic is forbidden. While Abe prepares to annihilate Eftel, the poor boy feels helpless being the center of everyone's attention. Against Merlin's wishes, he decides to use a feint attack to appear as if he tried, then get hit by Abe on the next hit to lose the match. This way, he could convince others that he's just a talentless rich kid. Then, as the match begins, Eftel throws his feint attack. Unfortunately, he's too fast for Abe and ends up stomping his entire face. With just one hit, Abe goes down, and Merlin announces Eftel as the victor. Seeing this scene, all the spectators are stunned. However, Maria notes that physical strength is not Abe's strong suit, since demons focus on magic. In contrast, humans are known to be better at physical martial arts compared to magic. So she thinks that Merlin set up this match to make Eftel look better. By doing this, she wants to change the curriculum for her demon students to include more physical training. Her theory sounds reasonable, so the demon students believe her. Eftel knows it's completely false, but he accepts her theory as well, using it as a cover to undermine his own abilities. Still, this explanation does nothing to console Abe, who begins to hate Eftel with a new passion. Later, at night, Anastasia and Eftel are having dinner in a room. Recalling Eftel's earlier performance, Anastasia praises him for defeating such a strong enemy. However, she wonders what he would do if he encountered a situation where his strength was not enough. Hearing her strange words, Eftel seems to understand why she's asking this random question. Still, he answers calmly and tells her that he would do his best to get the best outcome in that situation. Hearing this, Anastasia thinks that he still holds an unshakable confidence in his strength. Unfortunately, this only makes her feel even more useless. As a young slave, she doesn't have the strength or knowledge to support him in his goals. Hearing her dispirited words, Eftel reassures her that he doesn't want to use her for any purpose, so she should focus on enjoying her life to the fullest. Hearing this, she finally cheers up and finishes her dinner. Some days later, Merlin finds out that Anastasia stole a bunch of precious artifacts from the school's vault. Because she was authorized by Merlin, the genie let her enter the vault, but she betrayed his trust and stole the artifacts. Merlin notes that Anastasia wouldn't normally steal something as Eftel's slave, But because her slave seal is special, it must have controlled her actions somehow. These special seals give the caster complete control over the slave and are banned from the world. Merlin wonders if Eftel still wants to keep Anastasia around, knowing that she could rebel against him at any moment. He nods, explaining that he wants to undo her special slave seal. But Merlin reminds him that this action could cause a catastrophe. In their world, special slave seals can only be cast with the help of mighty beast lords. The last time a person undid a special slave, the beast lord who owned it became furious and wiped out an entire nation. Knowing this, Merlin thinks that Eftel is putting his life at risk. Still, he refuses to abandon Anastasia since he's the one who took her in. As her master, he is determined to do his best to save her. Hearing his words, Merlin smiles, knowing that her master would never abandon someone in need. Then, she asks Eftel if he knows Anastasia's current location. He explains that he had already expected Anastasia's real master to call her, so he put tracking magic on her. Meanwhile, Anastasia lugs a massive cart of loot towards a noble mansion. This is the house of Abe, who is the real owner of her special slave seal. With the bruise from Eftel's foot in his face, he praises her for a job well done. Anastasia smiles, forced to thank him by her special seal. Then, Abe remarks how lucky he was to encounter her at the school. He was the one who asked her to create a mock battle between him and Eftel, which forced her to nominate him as a volunteer. However, Eftel was clearly too strong for him, so Abe couldn't put him in his place. He wonders if Anastasia deliberately set him up while knowing that Eftel was that strong. But she admits that she never knew he could be that powerful. Still, now that she has delivered the precious artifacts, she wonders if Abe will stop ordering her. He nods, admitting that she has stolen enough artifacts, combined with the artifacts her big sister previously stole. Together, they have stolen exactly 5 precious artifacts, so the condition to end their slave contract is fulfilled. However, Abe suddenly reveals that Anastasia's slave seal will never fully disappear. Because her ancestors betrayed and attacked his ancestors, they were forced to bear this slave seal till the end of time. Even if Anastasia has done her part, her children will also carry the seal, and the cycle will continue. After delivering this shocking news, Abe leaves the room, and Anastasia has no choice but to accept his decision. Once he leaves, she heads to her own room and lies on her bed. Throughout her whole life, Abe has regularly contacted her to do his bidding. However, she had never felt this bad working for him as today. Now, she was forced to betray Eftel, who is the only person who showed real kindness to her. Now, she hopes that Abe will let her go. Lying in bed, she recalls a memory from her childhood. Back then, she used to live in her village in a peasant family. For some reason, her elder sister had gotten a job at a nobleman's mansion, so she used to stay out of the village. However, whenever she returned, she would bully Anastasia, saying that her birth caused their mother to die. Her hurtful words would bring Anastasia to tears, and she would tell her to get out. Feeling upset by all her bullying, she told her sister that she hated her. For some reason, her elder sister only smiled at those words and left without a word. Watching her leave, Anastasia wondered why she was smiling if she hated her so much. Years later, a carriage from a noble family entered Anastasia's village. After stopping near her house, the carriage dropped her sister's dead body in a bag. At first, she didn't realize what happened. Then, she started screaming and crying in terror as she recognized her sister's face. As Anastasia reached out to touch her, a strange glow appeared on her wrist. Nearby, a young Abe asked her father if Anastasia was the next in line. As his father nodded, Abe turned to Anastasia's father and told him to get moving. Instead of getting angry for the sake of his elder daughter, her father started trembling in fear of the noble family's power. He actually presented Anastasia, his second daughter, for the noble family to take. While Anastasia was shocked, Abe started laughing at her father for giving up his daughter so pathetically. Then, his father ordered his men to take her captive. Soon, they brought her to a hidden room to perform the transfer ritual for the special slave seal. After tying Anastasia near her dead sister, they forced her to touch her hand, transferring the special seal to her body. During the process, Abe's father explained that her older sister made a mistake while serving their family, which led to her death. Now, it's her job to continue her sister's job of stealing 5 precious artifacts for them. Her sister only brought them 3 artifacts, but she was caught by someone and killed before she could bring the other 2. Anastasia would bring them the other 2 artifacts, and the cycle of slavery would continue forever. Hearing this, Anastasia was heartbroken that her sister got killed in such a cruel manner. While the transfer ritual was taking place, she learned that hundreds of years ago, her ancestors lived with Abe's ancestor clan. However, they betrayed Abe's clan and tried to rob them, so Abe's family enslaved them as punishment. Her sister always knew about this history, so she tried her best to complete the job on her own. In case she died on the job, she wanted Anastasia to hate her so she wouldn't be hurt by her death. However, she never knew that this cycle of slavery would continue forever, so her sacrifice was completely in vain. Some time later, the ritual was finished, and Anastasia apologized to her sister with tears in her eyes. Now, she lies in Abe's room, bearing the consequences of her ancestors' sin to this day. Soon, Abe calls her for another mission. He tells her that she must steal all 5 artifacts, since his father has decided to use her abilities. Even though this is completely unfair, Anastasia is forced to obey him due to her slave seal. However, she feels even worse, since this means her sister died for no reason. In response to her words, Abe keeps sipping his tea. Clearly, he doesn't care what happened to her sister. In his eyes, the members of Anastasia's family are just objects for use. Then, he also tells Anastasia that her family's history was a complete lie. In reality, it was Abe's own ancestors who raided and killed Anastasia's ancestors out of greed, and enslaved them to keep exploiting them. Hearing this, Anastasia is left completely stunned. She realizes that her entire life was a lie, and she and her sister had tried so hard with no hope from the start. Watching her reaction, Abe starts laughing cruelly, enjoying her suffering. He even tells her that he told her sister the same thing before she died, and she had a similar reaction to her. While her brutal master continues relishing in her suffering, Anastasia starts to leave, unable to bear his voice anymore. As she goes, Abe reminds her that she can't escape him no matter where she goes. Every 6 months, her special slave seal will force her to return to his house to serve him once more. Knowing this, Anastasia walks home with a haunted look, feeling the most hopeless she has ever felt. But that's where this video ends. Remember to like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.